During the pentagram rite, I saw a line of dark spheres going off into the east. As it faced away from me, it kind of angled towards the north, east. With the first set of vibrations, I saw 13 pink poles or spikes. Then I saw orange boxes in the north. The shadows became fuzzy and things were quiet. And after the ritual, now it sounds like all of a sudden there's noise that wasn't there, the whole time, which it probably was there the whole time. Just my attention shifted away from it. I saw black gaps in the phosphenes. And these gaps weren't so much geometric shapes. And with the fifth set of vibrations, the shadows took on an orange tint. And previously, most distinct among the phosphenes was a violet purple. During the final reading, there was an intense trembling at times. I don't mean like a seizure or anything like that. I just mean, moved. Probably I was cold, but it didn't feel like that. Eventually there was a soothing warmness. And in the final scrying, the analgesia hit, and there was the warmness and teariness that focused on my eyes. They were almost hot, but not unpleasant in that way. And I saw red gaps. Are gaps with red on both sides. Whether it's agreed upon or disagreed with, one definitely finds a sense of understanding of how he agreed or disagreed with certain aspects of the Bible. But if the Bible wasn't his only source of mythology. Yeah, definitely one thing that's happening is my sense of it being cold and goes and comes, which I must hasten the account of this. We can say Jim Jones was right about how language was oriented to brainwash us. Society has directed us certain ways. He used certain words that have become derogatory, like his use of a word that used to just mean black, but became sort of derisive, like that's all a person is, to put things nicely. And So he advocated it, using it for those who were subclassed, and certain narratives that he got. I think he really did get narratives that put the Jews in the Holocaust and the USSR and China in lights that didn't reflect even the so-called mainstream sense of reality of it, that it took it to a little bit different of a direction, much less the proofs that kind of come through. But, I mean, in a subjective way, he ended up being right about some of that. And he made some predictions about nuclear war and stuff that, ended up being wrong. Now, if we're careful about such things and say, well, it seems like something could happen like, October of 2024 or something like that. And, well, but do you know in a prophetic sense? No, you don't know. So you need to be very careful about your claims, just like astrologers and card readers that overshoot what they're doing. In a way, you could say he was reborn in his claims or his sense about himself as, he was secretly black all this time, and then, but all his followers, that no matter how blonde-haired or pale-skinned they were, that, there must be, using that word that we're not going to say here, that rhymes with one of the words that we see on the screen, was in the woodpile, per se. And one of the things that he did with the Bible is that, well, he was raised in the clan, so he could understand that the Bible had been used to subjugate people, and there was definitely verses that made that point. Now, some of the verses that he uses, he's a bit creative with it, but in the sense that society projected upon some of these things, he tried the everybody be celibate, even the married couples, taking a more literal biblical approach to that. And then he made his way towards, well, as long as it's for socialism and all that, well, then you can use sex as a tool, either to keep your spouse or someone else in the movement, or to attract them into the movement and that sort of thing. And he, brought that about. And because so many bad things were labeled with the term black, he started trying to use the term white, in that. And in a way, he sort of saw himself as reborn as God, but then again, he didn't want to be thought of as the sky god that the Bible promoted, which he didn't think was the real God, and he came up with sermons that would, every so often, that would, chase away the more literal Bible users. And one of the myths that he came about, he basically had the jinn and Iblis. Well, I mean, he didn't use these terms. He used Lucifer and, a third of the farts of heaven, which was his term for angel. He didn't differentiate between the types of angels. Rather offensive story. So you can, in a way, think of it as like a biblically based Satanism, his group. He classified love as some sort of, well, total equity. But equality allows for merit. I mean, why can't we allow for merit? Certainly, people don't just get what they want, and them just getting what they want. It's like not everybody can't get that. So therefore, in that sense, capitalism is sort of a fantasy. And he did choose some of his locations for his church to prepare for nuclear war and some of the other stuff and that is an honorable thing, is to think of the surviving. Otherwise, he talked about, it's better to live a life and to further the cause with your life than it is to kill yourself. So he wasn't being upfront and right away with that. He admitted at times to having suicidal moods. I don't think that is in what we were reading today, but I mean, I'm not reading the text here, but in a way, we can all embody certain principles, or we can work towards that. Whether you believe in an afterlife or not, you got to admit the approach that, we're not putting heavens there just to, so a group of people can control us here, that we're not going to be active here how we should be active here, because we're like, well, it's going to be somewhere else, right? So he kind of separated things from that, which in some mainstream Christian circles would have been totally acceptable. Healing happens. Jim Jones says when it came to him, he didn't necessarily know how some of this happened, but it seemed to be happening of pretty much anything. His becoming an alien, or identifying as alien, because this world's not really his place, and to others he was strange and something that couldn't be understood. He tried to get people towards a sense of things are bigger or more vast, or however you're going to define that expansiveness, than what one perceives. Unlike Martin Luther King, he did believe in self-defense and advocated that by any means, and not quite any means, that wasn't the way it was phrased, but you know what I mean. The point of making and breaking relational ties wasn't that you couldn't use these things or have these things. It was that, you just didn't want the attachment. That wasn't supposed to be part of it. And there's biblical reasons towards that ends. And his idea was to make socialism the whole lifestyle.